up, Ham Radio? Kilo Echo 8, Papa Zoo in November, the Ham Radio Adventure Guy. Thanks for stopping by, your one stop for everything Adventure Radio. It is Hump Day. That means it's time for the Hump Day Happy Hour. And we got a great show tonight. We're going to be talking with Richard about little bit about Sota, a little bit about POTA and some CW, and anything else we want to talk about. But before we get started, we're going to give a shout out to the Patreons because they are absolutely awesome, and they help keep me going. I would say they help keep gas in my vehicle, but right now they're helping keep gas in whoever's vehicle wants to take me to do POTA right now. Vehicle is still down, but these guys are awesome, so give them a shout out. I do not have an updated Adventure Club board right now because Dan is in hiatus somewhere in his travels and didn't get a do the update this afternoon, but we'll update that for the next stream. And I do want to thank Kilo 8 Golf Quebec for the off-stream donation through Buy Me a Coffee. So, what's going on, Richard?
Not much. Just sitting in the shack right now.
I hear you. I hope your shack is a little bit cooler than mine. Mine is burning up right now. But well, just in case, I mean, most of my audience is POTA people, and so they probably know you. But just in case there is not somebody that don't know you, go ahead and give us a little brief description and tell us what got you into ham radio.
Well, November 1, Romeo Bravo Delta. Name is Richard. Live just north of Atlanta. I originally got into ham radio to do some search and rescue work. We were required to get a technician's license to use HTs during SAR callouts. And about a week after that, somebody mentioned they did a Sota activation at Stone Mountain nearby. I asked, what's the Sota? He said, oh, that's Summits on the Air. So my wife and I, we do a lot of hiking. I do some solo hiking, a little bit of backpacking. And I got to thinking, summits, hiking, ham radio, this could be fun. So did my first activation doing VHF, got my general, and found out about parks on the air. So you can do a bunch of dual park and Sota activations. So that sent me down the rabbit hole.
Awesome. You actually already answered my next question. I was going to ask what come first, Sota, POTA, or CW, but obviously with Sota. So I know you did quite a bit of Sota because I know you've got a mountain goat, which I'm very envious of. Even though I've I've barely done any Sota, but I do plan on getting started in it pretty big, and that will be my ultimate goal. So tell us a little bit about Summits on the Air for the people who hasn't done it yet.
Well, Summits on the Air originally started over in England in that area. It's basically the same as POTA, except you go to certain designated summits and operate from an activation zone. And the activation zone is 85 vertical feet from the peak of the summit. So you could be at a very sharp peak with a small activation zone, or for example, Montesano is pretty much a plateau and has a very large activation zone. You're required to get 4 QSOs, and that's it, you're activated. It was originally VHF only. That's why the 4 QSO rule kind of came into play there. But then people started lugging up HF radios, and that helped get a niche market in for things like the MTR, the little QCX minis, and some of the ultra small CW radios. And on Sota, CW is actually the most preferred activation method, just because you can carry little small radios up to summits without loading down your backpack.
Right. You know, and that's something I'm looking forward to. Is getting me a little tiny CW radio, which I've got one being built for me right now. I don't have the dexterity in my fingers to build that little sucker, but it's being built for me. So when it gets done, I look forward to taking that thing up. But so then you started doing POTA. Tell us what your first, when you first started doing POTA, what you thought as compared to Sota.
I thought it was a lot tougher. I tried doing POTA a few weeks after I got my technician's license. So I went out to the local park near me in Metro Atlanta. I started calling CQ, and I had absolutely zero takers. And I got to thinking, man, this is going to be tough. So started reading up about it and figured out that to do an actual POTA activation, you either need to be at a high altitude for VHF or HF. So that's kind of what spurred me on to get my general license. So I got my general, went out to the park with a little FT818 and the antenna that I bought off eBay. Still didn't have much luck. It would take me maybe 15 or 20 minutes just to get a single QSO. And learn more about antennas. Got a Sota Beams dipole antenna. And let me tell you, once you get the proper antenna to go with a radio, it opens up the whole world to you. I had my first pileups with that antenna, and it was a blast.
Now, so you really surprised me with that answer. I was not expecting you to tell me that you thought it was tougher, because I'm the exact opposite. I feel like it's way tougher for me to. But now I've not done Sota the proper way. I've not took the little tiny rig up the mountain and done it. When I went and did Sota, I facked all this stuff up the mountain. I'm Mr. Hulk. I can take up the world up this mountain. Matter of fact, when I did my video of my first Sota, there was people commenting, "How did you get all that stuff up there?" And they wonder why I was huffing and puffing going up the mountain. It wasn't hard to activate once I was up there, of course, but the getting it there, I do look forward to doing a lot smaller. I've really condensed my Sota kit now, and actually right now my Sota kit is an 818 like you were talking about, so it's a whole lot smaller than what I used to do there. So then I've heard some people brag about your CW journey. And I've recently I've really fell in love with CW. So tell me a little bit about your CW journey.
Well, my Elmer, N4H&H, Doug, he does a lot of Yaesu videos on YouTube. He was into CW. I was talking to him one day, and I got to thinking, and I said, well, I would kind of like to get into CW just because it was, what they had to use, decades, and just back in the old days, that's all it was a spark gap and sending CW. And what really spurred me after that was myself and Doug and a couple of other Sota guys went up to Rainy Mountain in North Georgia, and I lugged my 818 up there and everything, and one of the other guys pulls out this little radio about the size of a box of cigarettes, and looked at it. I was like, what kind of radio is that? Oh, that's an MTR. It's CW only. So I got to thinking, I've got to get me one of these. And started my CW journey, say probably January of 2020, and made my first QSO in April. Worked KU8T on POTA, park to park. And after I did that, I just fell in love with it. My key fright went away, and pretty much I run almost 100% CW now, unless there's a part to part that I want to get, or a rare part that I haven't gotten before who's on sideband. I actually took classes with the Long Island CW Club, joined them as a regular member, then upgraded to a life member, just because they had so much more to offer than just classes. They have forums, they have portable operations, bug forums, boat anchor forums, and they were a big help in my CW journey.
Awesome. I actually am also a lifetime member of the Long Island CW Club, and I've actually presented a portable operations forum there before. And it really, really does help you get into CW. That's where my journey started, was learning through them. And it really helped me learn what I needed to learn to get started. But then the big help that really helped me, and I don't know about Richard, but what really helped me was practice, getting extremely early. I practice Well, I mean, I activate a Pota Park every single day. Dan, thank you very much for the super chat and the awesome caliber there. And I'm sure Richard appreciates the comment. But like I activate every day, so that's what helped me. If you practice CW every day, I promise you, you're going to get better. Because I started it once before with the Long Island CW Club, and I was learning really good. But then I went to a ham fest, and I was gone for a while, and I wasn't practicing every day like I'm supposed to. And when I got back, I was off that schedule, and I stopped practicing, and I just stopped it because I couldn't pick. I tried to do it, and I wasn't nowhere near where I was. So then when I restarted to learn again, and I started practicing it every day again, that's why I said I'm just going to activate every day. So, that really helps the practice every day. And that's my pointer on that. But sorry, Richard, go ahead.
One thing that helps me is I usually go out for a daily walk, sometimes 2 walks, and I would actually have an app on my phone that would let me listen to some various web SDRs around the country. And I would just tune in and listen to random CW QSOs. You learn to deal with different fists, bugs, straight keys, QRM, QSB, QLF. Don't know if you know what that is yet, but that helped me immensely for a head copy.
Yeah, I mean that's it right there. You find a way to practice, like when you're driving to work and stuff. I first started with apps on the phone, listening. What I was doing is I was listening to call signs over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started using this little MFJ CW armor here, and I can plug it straight into my car's audio, and it plays random letters for me. It'll play so many random letters, and then it'll bring them up, and we'll see if I got them right, and then it goes to another set. So it's easy to practice CW without actually doing CW. So
The Morcerino also helped me as well. That was my first kit I ever built, and it's got an echo trainer. It will send you a random word or call sign, and then you send it back, and that was a big help as well.
yeah, I can see where that would really help as well. So back to the summits on the air. You're actually a mountain goat. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, I started off in August of 2019 doing Sota, and started doing a bunch of activations with Doug, N4H&H, his brother, and another buddy. And we just made a big push there for a while. COVID kind of put a damper on that. Even the Appalachian Trail was closed for a while. And finally wound up making Mountain Goat December of 2022. I went up to Asheville to house sit for a good friend of mine while he was on his honeymoon. Hit a couple of summits on the way up. I actually had COVID at the time, the tail end of COVID, when I hit those 2 summits. Probably wasn't the best idea, but had to get them in. And activated Mount Mitchell as my Mountain Goat summit. My wife came up to spend the weekend with me, and she went along with me. She'd always wanted to see Mount Mitchell. So I got 3 FM contacts on 2 meter. Told everybody to stand by. I got on CW and worked Doug, my Elmer, on 40 meter CW to clinch my Mountain Goat. So it was a fun journey. I saw a lot of great sights, met some nice people, some hikers, other ham radio operators, saw a few bears, snakes. So never know what you're going to see out on the trail.
Just a question. For those of us non-Sota people that don't know what a mountain goat is, could you tell us what a mountain goat is?
Well, depending on the peaks that you activate, you can get anywhere from 1 point to 10 points, depending on the prominence of the peak. Mount Mitchell, for example, is a 10-point summit. Stone Mountain near Atlanta is a 2-point summit. So a mountain goat is somebody who has attained 1,000 activator points.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So it's a lot of trips up the mountain.
Yep.
Even if you were doing all 10 pointers, that's still quite a few trips up the mountain. So what's your average hike when you're doing a summit?
I would say probably round trip, probably 3 to 5 miles. A lot of times it's less, a few times it's more. Some of the shorter hikes can actually be a little more strenuous. For example, there's a one pointer that is about a 700-foot elevation gain in about 3/4 of a mile, where there's a 10 pointer that is almost a drive up. It's a 600-foot elevation gain in 1 mile. So it's not necessarily based on the difficulty of the hike. It's strictly based on the prominence of the summit above the surrounding terrain.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I'm like, wait, this is a 10 pointer, and it looks like it's about 3/4 of a mile of a hike, and this one over here is a 2 pointer, and it's 6 miles. I'm like, what's going on here? And that's why I had to start researching and figuring that stuff out, because it was driving me insane, because I was thinking, the harder the hike, the more points or something.
Mount Mitchell was a great example of that. Literally, it took us 5 minutes to get to the summit, and it was a 10 pointer. And winter bonus had also kicked in, so I got 3 extra points. Winter bonus depends on what Sota association you're in. For example, I believe some of the states actually have a summer bonus because it gets so hot there during the summer. But in Georgia, you get winter bonus, and it runs from December 1st through March 15th. So any summit that is 6 points or above gets 3 extra points during that time.
Okay, so it does have to be 6 points or above.
Yeah, it's 6 points, or there's a certain prominence that it has to be. And in Georgia, there's a few summits that need to be corrected and adjusted, but as a general rule, that's what it is. And like, for example, in North Carolina, I believe the winter bonus actually runs until the end of March, so it varies from each association.
Now are all of them the 6 points or above, or is that just Georgia?
That's for Georgia. Each association has
okay.
its own association manager and rules for any type of bonus.
Okay. So now, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I know you can only activate one as many times as you want, but you only get the points one time a year. But if you go back in the winter and activate that same summit, and you didn't get bonus before, you can actually still get the bonus points, right?
Right. You could activate Blood Mountain for 10 points November 1st. You could come back December 1st and activate Blood Mountain, and you would get an additional 3 points.
Right. You wouldn't get to 10, but you'd get to 3.
Right. Now, if you do a summit to summit, then things change a little bit different. You actually get points based on the DX that you're working. Like, say he was on an 8-point summit, you would also get those 8 points for a summit to summit.
Really? Now, is that only during the winter or anytime?
That's anytime.
Oh. See, this is why you're on here. You're already teaching me something. So basically, I'm wanting to go up through the summits, and I'm wanting to hunt other summits.
Exactly. I mean, I've worked numerous summit to summits, and you only get that one time if you work. Say you've got 3 activators on a different summit, you only get that bonus points for the other activators points one time. But if you've got 4 people on 4 different summits, then yes, you would get all of their extra points for each summit.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Another 30-06. Everybody's deer hunting tonight.
And another thing Sota has that I think would be kind of cool for Sota to implement is they keep track of what's called Sota completes. That's where you activate a summit and you also chase a summit.
Oh.
Harry, thank you very much for the super sticker. And Eddie, thank you very much for the super sticker. Oh, that's interesting. So how long did it actually take you to get the goat?
I started in August of 2019 and actually got the goat December 3rd of 2022.
Okay.
So a little over 3 years.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
I probably could have done it in a little bit less, except for all the restrictions we had for a few months during COVID.
But it definitely won't be no record time for me because my first summit was a long time ago and I ain't done much since. But all right, so as far as CW, when did you start to notice that? Okay, you probably started hunting CW, but when did you notice that you were starting to be a better activator in CW? How long did it take you? Because I've heard some stories about how you learned pretty quick.
I actually did my first activation. I believe it was around late April or early to mid-May of 2020. And I was using a little CW Morse, little nano straight key that's about the size of a quarter. And I would actually kind of hold it in my hand like a video game controller and send CW like this.
Oh my goodness.
Because, I didn't have anywhere to put it, when I'm out at the park. But probably around August or September, it started becoming more of a second nature to me. When I first started activating CW, somebody would send me a part number for a park to park, and I went into a panic. I'm like, okay, I think I copied this right, but I'll double check when I go back to the spotting page. And now, somebody sends me a park number. It's like, yeah, you don't have to repeat it. I got it. And sometimes somebody will send me, their name and everything. Basically, when I first started, if they went off script, I went into a tizzy.
I'm still kind of the same way, but I definitely was that way at first. Like I had my script, and once you went off that script, I just stopped even trying to. I'm just putting you in my log and getting ready to send my 73 to you. I didn't care what you were saying.
I can relate to that.
And it was like that way for the longest time. And just here recently, I've gotten to where there's a couple of guys now, and we'll actually joke a little bit on CW. Dan, Whiskey Delta 4 Delta Alpha November, we actually our CW exchange actually has the word wolf in it, like a dog wolf. And I'm sure a lot of people are like, did they just say wolf to each other? But it happens. So I've gotten to where I do play a little bit, but most of the time when I first was trying to come off script, I could send what I was coming off script to send, but then what I was supposed to send after that I've sent a million times, I'd get lost and start messing up. But numbers, like you were saying, the park to parks, that's still my weakness. I'll try to copy the park numbers, but I'll always put a little note in my comments, check. Every single time I just put check because I don't know if I copied that number right or not. I can copy one number, one number is just fine, with your call sign. But when you go sending 4 straight, I'm like, check this,
Yeah, I was the same way. If I would get a DX calling me,
oh my goodness.
It didn't start with a A or a K or an N or a W. I get an I or a G. Man, that used to throw me for a loop. I'd be like, I didn't hear that right.
Yeah, I didn't hear that right. I can remember being like that on sideband. I can remember it was an Echo Alpha 1 call, and every time he would say 1, it would sound like he was saying Guam with his accent. So he kept saying, Echo Alpha Guam, and he'd repeat the rest of his call sign. I'm like, I need a number. And he'd be like, Echo Alpha Guam. I'm like, I need a number. So, yeah, I can remember those days in sideband. And so, but CW, you get off that pattern that you're used to. And, but it's funny that you remembered your first CW contact because I'm a sideband guy. I love sideband. To me, I have to be the top of the food chain when it comes to sideband. That's just who I am. But I don't remember who my first sideband contact was on POTA. I can tell you who my first HF contact was, but I can't tell you who my first sideband was on POTA. I can tell you who from my first CW one is, and that would be Bill from Florida. And that's because I hunted him specifically because he always told me, you need to do CW, you need to do CW. And it was really funny because I worked him. You know, I practiced listening to my call sign coming back to me, and I finally work him. And, you know, he sends this big old long list of stuff back that I had no clue what he was saying. I'm just waiting for him to stop so I can get off there. And it was really funny because 30 seconds after I work him, my phone goes off. And I didn't even bother telling him park to park because I didn't know how to tell him park to park. But my phone goes off. It was a message from Bill. He's like, somebody's using your call sign. I said, that was me. He's like, there's no way I worked you on CW. So then he goes over to the POTA page and he's like, is it possible that I just worked KE8PZN on CW? And then he just starts this big old thing with me. You're going to fall in love with CW. I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I still
and here you are loving it.
I still ain't going to tell Bill he was right. But
And I still remember my very first HF contact was actually a random Sota chase.
okay.
It was a couple of weeks after I got my general. Still didn't really know what I was doing. I saw a guy spotted, and I'm like, I'm going to try him. So I literally pulled off the road into a park, threw an antenna up in a tree, maybe 10 feet off the ground, tried him, and got him. I don't remember the call sign right off, but it was a Sota activator in Canada. And that was my very first HF and
nice.
Sota chase.
Nice.
Hey, Chris, thank you very much for the super sticker. Appreciate it. I know that my first POTA contact was as a hunter, and it was the night that I passed my general because that's why I took my general was to do POTA. And I immediately come home, and I already had my dad's radio hooked up right here on this desk, and I go to the spotting page, and I found somebody, and I worked them. And you know, with the stroke AG, you know. And it's funny. So then I played around on the radio a little bit that night, and that night I went on 80 meters and I was just trying to make contacts. I'm this cool new general guy, and I can make contacts. And you know, I got on there and I was calling with stroke AG, and you get these lids on 80 meters like, don't use that stroke AG. We don't need to hear that crap. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, the FCC says you need to hear that crap. But question: is there a cross-reference page with the Sota parks and POTA park numbers in case we want to do both?
Not that I know of right off. Just being based in Georgia and, you know, my research myself, it's kind of interesting. The vast majority of the Sota summits are actually part of the Chattahoochee National Forest, and a good number are on the Appalachian Trail, and also in a WMA sometimes. There's actually a good number of threefers that you can do for POTA in addition to the Sota. But as far as a nationwide cross-reference, have not seen one.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything like that, but that does bring up a good point. So tell me some of the tools that you use to help you. I'm not talking about, say, your radio equipment. I'm talking about maybe apps or something like that that helps you to do Sota better.
Definitely, I use Sota Spotter on my phone. That gives me current spots from Sota. It also lets me spot the either data or SMS, because sometimes SMS will go through when data doesn't. I haven't really spotted that much through that anymore since I started doing CW. I'm more relying on RBN spots. I will spot myself if I'm running VHF on Sota though. For POTA, a lot of what I use are the Georgia DNR maps of the sites and the parks, and WMAs, things like that, to find borders where things might overlap, and also the NPS website and some of their high definition maps help also. I log on paper, so there's not a whole lot of electronic activity when I'm doing an activation. I just find it much easier to log on paper when doing CW. I can copy sometimes 2 or 3 partials in a pileup. I can take notes. Somebody sends me the SKCC number. I just write it down. I don't have to worry about finding a field to fill it in. And I use a program called a fast log entry that allows me to do, it's almost kind of a shorthand. And for example, I had 600 plus POTA QSOs in the plaque event, and it only took me maybe about 90 minutes to enter those.
All right, now that's an interesting thing that I've been looking at here recently. Kyle Alpha Zero Zulu actually just did a stream on the fast log entry, and that seems to intrigue me. So it's interesting that you say that. So what about finding the activation areas? What do you use for that?
I use Google Earth, and I do a fill zone of 85 meters below the summit height, and that will basically shade in what the activation area is. There's also a website, I don't have it off the top of my head, but you can actually enter a SOTA designator, and through some kind of voodoo magic, it goes out, calculates the activation zone, and will give you the same type of graphic display that Google Maps does by just entering a SOTA reference.
Awesome. Now, there was a question from the chat that wanted to know what radio you use for SOTA QRP only.
My go-to radio is a MTR3B, the LCD version. Actually saw that on QRZ about 45 seconds after the guy posted it. And I was the first one in, and he told me he had like 3 inquiries on it within the first 5 minutes. So I lucked out, got that one. And then I will also sometimes carry a 17-meter QCX Mini that I built from a kit. And kind of a funny story about that one is I took that up to Coosa in Georgia, already had done the activation. Doug and actually Red Summit RF, Charlie, was up there with us. They were still operating, so I said, I'm going to try this QCX. I threw an antenna about 15 feet in the air, started calling CQ. My very first call sign I had to do a double take was a ZL. So it was ZL2 IFB, if I remember correctly. And that radio put out 4.2 watts measured. So from Georgia to New Zealand on 4.2 watts, and that was the very first QSO ever made with that radio.
Nice. Thank you very much, Digital Rancher, for the super chat. So I actually have the newer version of that radio. When I was talking about getting one built, I've got the 5-band version being built for me. So that's what I'm going to be having out when I do my CW QRP. So I'm really excited about it. But you've heard him talk about Doug, his Elmer, quite a few times. And if you don't know who Doug is, you can actually search back in when this channel was in its very new days. I actually interviewed Doug a long time ago. Doug's a really good guy, and things come around a lot longer in time, and then Doug ends up interviewing me on his channel. So make sure and check out Doug's channel, especially if you use a Yazoo radio, because he if I want to know how to do something on my radio, the first place I go is not my manual. I go over to Doug's channel and check it out because he's got a video on it for me.
I'll have those in the chat in a minute. I have a question, if you don't mind. Everybody complains about the SOTA website. And for reasons of not getting into SOTA, I've heard, even in the chat tonight, the website is hard to deal with. How do you deal with the SOTA website, and maybe some tricks and tips for the new people to get around it?
Well, they just actually, I want to say probably 3 or 4 months ago, they launched a brand new website that I think is a lot easier to get around. I don't do a whole lot of things on the SOTA website other than actually uploading my logs and doing a chaser entries. And one trick, though, if you are a chaser, is log into the Sota Watch website, and you can actually do a one-click log of your chases into your Sota data. There's a little small icon, a little plus icon next to each one of the activators. You click on that, and if you're logged in, it'll fill in the time, date, mode, band, activator. Then you just click OK, and bam, that logs straight into your Sota log, so you get the chaser points. And there's another alternate website that I really love that I use a lot more than the Sota website when looking for potential summits, and it's sotl.as. And that pulls the same data as the Sota website, but it gives you, to me, the format of it is a lot better.
Their mapping is a whole lot easier over there.
Oh, yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
And it has some links back to the Sota website for people that have put activation reports, things like that you need to know. But it also allows you to post pictures on that the Sotless website versus Sota, where you had to link to like Imager or somewhere like that.
So,
Cool.
so I don't know about in Georgia, but I know about here in West Virginia. A lot of the summits, well, I mean, I can do ATNOs every day because they're not done, but a lot of them are just on just random pieces of property. There's no real way to tell, if there's a way there or not. I mean, I've looked at maps and stuff like that, and you don't find no way to get there. You don't know whose land this is and stuff like that. And I don't know if you guys have any of that in Georgia. Like you said, a lot of them on the Appalachian Trail and stuff. But how do you deal with stuff like that?
Well, there's actually an activator, Ryan, that he has actually sent letters to property owners and has actually gotten responses, and they have allowed him to activate on their property. But a lot of times, there's a website or there's an app, I can't remember what it is. Somebody showed it to me one time, but I don't remember it, that will actually give you the owner of a certain property. So you could search for a summit, and it will give you a map and the owner's name. But there's some summits in Georgia that are in like residential areas that the activation zone is actually in somebody's backyard or something like that. So Sota leaves those on just because it has the potential to change one of these days. But I don't ever see somebody giving up their land to the state to allow them to put a WMA or something in there.
Right.
But there's actually one. I can't remember the name of the mountain right off. But if you get in touch with the guy, he will actually cart you up in his like a Kawasaki Mule or something, and kind of give you the grand tour while before you activate.
Now that's awesome right there. I need to go do that, Sota.
But the vast majority in Georgia appear to be on public land. Like I said, we've got a bunch of WMAs in Georgia. The Chattahoochee National Forest covers thousands of square miles. So there's a few on private property in Georgia, but the vast majority we don't really have to worry about.
Okay. I was just curious if you had any pointers, because there's some around me that I can do for sure, but there's some of them that I'm like, I don't know about this. But if anybody has that link to that webpage that actually has the owners' names and stuff like that, make sure and send that in the chat or put that in my Discord or something, because that would definitely be handy to have for sure. All right, so now we'll go through a question for all three subjects. What is your biggest accomplishment? And we'll start with Sota.
Obviously, obtaining mountain goat. I'm got the goat. I believe I'm a 3X or maybe even a 4X at this point chaser, which the chaser's the same. What do they call it? Shack sloth. That's it, shack sloth, and that's 1,000 chaser points. So yeah, that's definitely our biggest accomplishment for Sota.
And that works by you get the points of the summit that they're activating. Is that how that works?
Yeah, if you're chasing him, he's on an 8-point summit. You work him, you get 8 points. Now, if there's 3 activators on that summit, you only get the 8 points one time. You don't get it for all 3 activators.
Okay. All right.
And for Pota, probably my biggest accomplishment. There's kind of 2 that I like. I did win the plaque event last year for CW. I had 900 some odd QSOs. And then also I was the first one to actually activate Cumberland Island from the island itself. It had been activated during NPOTA from the visitor center on the mainland, but that was in 2016. My wife and I, we visited in 2020, and it had never been activated. So I did the first activation of it from the island proper. That's probably my 2 biggest POTA milestones.
Very nice. What about CW?
CW, I would have to say probably also winning the POTA plaque for the CW, but also getting the ARRL 30 word per minute certification.
30 words per minute. That's pretty amazing. I don't even want to learn to send 30 words a minute.
I don't know if you ever attended any of Howard's head copy classes, but it would always start with the Lord's Prayer in a CW of 30 words a minute. And I remember the first time I went to that class, I'm like, man, all I hear is just a bunch of dots and dashes. And then, 8 months later, it was bam.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I really, really love CW. I do. I really enjoy it and stuff like that. But I do it for POTA and Sota. And I don't know about for Sota, but I know as far as POTA, I don't need to send any faster than I do right now. I've got plenty of punters hunting me, and there's people that's slower than me. There's people that's faster than me, and I can hear a lot faster than I'm sending, and I'll respond to them. But sometimes I'm like, I can't get you. You're going to slow down, and it's the same way.
I was the same way. When I first started, I said I just want to get up to 15 words a minute. That's good enough to activate. I can chase people, and I'm the kind of personality that if I get into something, I go 110%. And CW was no different. I never really intended to get faster than that, but it just kind of came naturally. I started getting comfortable being faster, and the more I did CW, the more comfortable I got. So that's where I'm at right now.
And that's with me too. I started at 12, and then I went to 15, which was my goal. I just wanted to do 15, just like what you said. And everybody's like, "Dude, you can send way faster than that." And I just now I'm sending at 17, and I'm fine there. I could probably send faster than that if I wanted, but I'm content there. And until one of the Patreons just one night, like, why don't you just send 18 or 19? That's how I ended up at 17. They just kept inching me up. It's funny. I got a couple of them. Dan, Whiskey Delta 4 Delta Alpha November, and Joe, November 3 Extra Lima Sierra. Sometimes they'll just come through my pile-ups sending 25 words a minute, and I'll work them, and then they're laughing at my Discord. So.
Yeah, I've got a couple of I do the CW Ops tests on Wednesday. And a couple of those guys, they'll come at me at about 30 words a minute just to get me off kilter. Everybody else is sending 20, and then all of a sudden this 30 comes blasting in there, and it just kind of gets you off kilter.
What's crazy is when you first started, slow is fine, but once you start really hearing letters, and even now I'm to the point where I hear somebody and I just hear their call sign. I don't even hear letters anymore from certain peoples. If I ain't worked your call sign a lot, I hear your letters. But like Dan and the Pearsons and Joe, a lot of them, I just hear their call sign and I'm typing it in and sending it. But once I got to that point, these people who are sending, under 12 words a minute, I can't decode it at all. Like I can't make my brain, because I'm like, it's just dits and dollars to me. I can't do it, and I feel bad because I'm like, this guy's trying to learn CW, and I can't. I'm not that activator yet. I can't do it. Bill Brown, he's so amazing. Like, I don't care if you're sending 40 words a minute or 1 word a minute to Bill Brown. He's going to slow down to your speed or speed up to your speed and be fine. I'm not that way. But, I do try, but sometimes I just have to let that little station, I'm like, sorry, guy, I can't get you.
Yeah, I was the same way for a while. And, I actually got to where I made a point to even practice copying some slower CW to help out newer people, because a lot of new CW operators, they do POTA and Sota because the exchange is so easy. They really all they really need to do is know how their call sign sounds. So I can do it, but sometimes I have to send the did it did it and get them to repeat it once my mind slows down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the same thing. Like, when I started by hunting POTA, because all I really needed to do is hear my call sign and know how to send my call sign and know my signal report and state and stuff. Because I would listen for them to call CQ, and when they would stop, I would send my call sign.
Mm-hmm.
If they sent my call sign back, I heard my call sign, didn't have a clue what they put after that. I knew if they were putting question mark after that, because I didn't know the question mark, but I didn't know anything else. And I would send it back and send the signal report, and I knew I was in the log. I didn't care, nothing else. And here Bill Brown's all the time trying to talk to me. Hey, James, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And he knew good and well I wasn't going to know that stuff. And he'd always message me and said, this is what I said to you.
You sending back the meme of your brain exploding.
Yeah. Do you have a bucket list of summits to activate? And have you ever failed to activate after you made the climb to the top?
My first attempt at Stone Mountain was a fail to activate. Like I said, totally incompetent, didn't know what I was doing. Took a Baofeng up to the summit of Stone Mountain, and there is so much RFI up there that it just becomes death. That's actually how I met Doug. I was calling CQ from Stone Mountain. Doug bumped up his radio to 80 watts. He's got the 2980 Yaesu. He's got a line of sight, so I was able to copy him somewhat. So he sent me a copy of his Sota primer. We talked. He suggested a FT270 or an FT60. So went out, got those, went back up to Stone Mountain, and had no issue with a superhead up there. And ever since then, I've not failed to activate. And I've actually, most of my summits are already activated with VHF before I even break out the HF rig. We have a really good VHF chaser little family up in North Georgia that they monitor 5.2 or 4.9, and they love working us.
See, and that's something I wish I had here, because I would feel so much better being able just to activate, on 2 meter or whatever before I ever pull out the HF rig.
Yep.
But so I'm gonna go back off to that last question, since you tell me you did have one failed activation, and because you said when you're in something you're in it 100%. I feel like you have that mentality like me, and I just got it's probably a personal question, but how did you accept defeat, man? How did you do it?
Well, when I realized that it was more the equipment and not me, that had some redeeming value to it. And the Baofeng I got at first was like $29, and I got that because I didn't know if I would enjoy it, and if I didn't enjoy it, $29. That's, a couple of, combo meals at McDonald's these days.
Oops.
But once I figured out about soda and how I could do it while hiking and going out with my wife hiking, and she's a good sport about it too. She'll give me about an hour on a summit, but after about 45 minutes, I start getting the first level. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm wet, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm ready to go down look. So I know it's about time to start wrapping things up then, because at about an hour, I start getting the third level look.
It's funny that you mentioned it. That's how everybody starts right there, you guys. Everybody starts with that little cheap radio because they're not sure if they're going to like it or not. And then it is. This right here is the Chinese drug that will just break your bank account. This little $25 radio will make you just throw away every penny you got.
As far as the bucket list, I definitely would love to do Mount Washington one day and McAfee Knob. So those are two on the East Coast that I would love to activate. That's pretty much it for the bucket list right now. Maybe Mount Katahdin also, just so I could say that I've been to the northern terminus of the AT. I've activated Springer Mountain, the southern terminus, many times.
Awesome stuff. So, I've seen a few new people in the chat that's not normally in here, and I'm going to assume that you're here because you're fans of Richard. So, if you guys like what Richard does in Sota and Pota and stuff like that, this channel's all about that. So, I would really appreciate you guys hitting that subscribe button and also go over and check out my Discord, because we're really active in the Pota and Sota community and stuff like that. So, the links can be found in the link tree description in the chat. I promise you won't regret it. Because we're always having cool people like Richard. Like I said, we've had Doug on here, and we've had a lot of good guests on this show. So it'll be good for you, I promise. And we won't try to sell you all these other radios that Bofang done it all for you when you bought it. If you ain't experienced it yet, trust me, that Bofang sends subliminal messages to your brain. All right, so we are getting close to the top of the hour. Richard, you got any shout outs or anything coming up you want to tell people about?
Just want to make sure everybody's aware, next year, first weekend of April, the Georgia State Parks on the Air event. Got plenty of time to plan for it. If you're in Georgia or neighboring state, come activate a Georgia park. We'd love to have all 50 of the Georgia State parks on the air that weekend. We hit 48 this year, and we're shooting for 50 this year. So come activate with us. If you can't activate, be looking for the Georgia parks on the Pota spotter.
Listen, that was a fun weekend of hunting, Pota. I'm not a hunter, but I sat in parks and was activating parks by hunting all the Georgia parks. It was so much fun. So,
it was a blast.
It's quite funny because people look at my hunting awards and they're like, "You say you're not a hunter all the time." I'm like, "I'm not. My stuff is park to parks, guys." It's a rare occasion that I'm hunting from. If you've got a QSO for me from my shack hunting you have a rare QSO. I mean, I'm going to say maybe 150 QSOs out of this shack.
That's the same way it was for me when I first started, because I sold my house. I was in an apartment for supposed to be a year before we got married. Then COVID came, so I was in there for an apartment for 3 years, and all I had was a Wolf River coil clamped to the balcony rail, and it worked, but I had 500 of my closest friends and all their RFI spewing wall warts and power supplies and everything. So most of my Sota and Pota chases were park to park and summit to summit until January of 2022.
My noise level here is pretty loud, for sure, and it's quite funny because I've got over my Pota career, I've had plenty of different stalkers and stuff like that. And they all have their thing that they try to mess with me with. And here recently, I've got one. He wants to claim that I'm a cheater, that I'm activating from my house, despite
That's Mr. McDonald's.
I'm putting out content of me activating out in the field. But I I want to look at him and just say, "Have you heard my home station, bud? I wouldn't make these contacts." You always gonna have your haters though. He's a lot better. He's a lot better than the guy that would threaten obscenities to me every night.
I miss your DJ.
You missed my DJ. I did.
I miss your DJ.
My DJ was fun, you know, and until he started using my call sign and stuff like that, I was cool with him. But when he started using my call sign, I kind of drew the limit. You know, I've had people that there's people out there that's literally recorded me calling CQ, and they were playing it over the hurricane net, trying to get the hurricane net to turn me in or something.
Oh, jeez.
I'm doing an activation on another frequency, and somebody's like, you know, somebody's playing your CQ on the hurricane net over there. So funny stuff.
Some people have no life.
Yeah, it's you know, I don't understand it. These people, these 80-meter guys and these lids, they fussed all these years about, you know, nobody wants to do ham radio. Nobody wants to do ham radio. Well, then all of a sudden, ham radio is booming. You know, there's all kinds of people doing ham radio, and they want to fuss because they might have to change their frequency and go talk about their macaroni salad and their elbow injury over here. You
know what? They should go out to a park, set up a radio, and they could talk about their macaroni salad and their medical operations there.
Yeah, that ain't gonna
happen. And get credit for Parks on the Air.
We were on vacation in Sanibel a few years ago, and I was talking to this guy on one of the repeaters in there, and he said, "Yeah, you should join us every morning about 8:30. We have the pharmaceutical net."
Nice.
Hey, at least he was honest about what it was about.
I would listen to that.
I've heard some funny ones. I really have. I've heard some funny ones. Okay. All right. So, Hayden, you got anything coming up?
Oh, we'll talk about that in the after chat.
All right. That sounds good. So, I myself am getting ready to go over to after chat. And Richard, we do have an after chat. You're welcome to come over and hang out with us if you want. You don't have to. You do have to be a member of my Discord, and Hayden will get you set up if you're not. We'll be over in after chat hanging out tonight, and other than that, I will be getting rides to Pota. Every ride I can get, I'm going to be in the park until I get my vehicle fixed, and then I'm going to be a maniac again. But it's slowed me down drastically, but I'm still averaging 2 to 3 activations a day, guys. You can calm down. You know, all these people's like, you're not going to the park so much. Guys, I'm still getting more activations than a lot of people do in a month per day. It's okay. It's all good. But I appreciate all the donations, guys. And Richard, thank you very much for hanging out with us tonight.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
I really appreciated it. I thought you were an interesting guy, and I knew it would be an interesting show, and I believe it was. So we appreciate it. All right, guys. We'll see you everybody in the after chat, and 73 till next time.
73, everyone.